He used to sit on the same corner every morning, right next to the old train station. His clothes were torn, his shoes had holes, and his eyes held that empty silence of someone who has lost everything. He didn't ask for much, just a few coins, maybe a sandwich if someone was kind. Most people just passed by without a second glance. Until one day, a man in a dark suit stopped right in front of him. The homeless man lifted his head, surprised. The stranger was different, not because of the expensive suit, but because of the calm, confident energy around him. The beggar slowly stretched out his hand, expecting a coin, but instead, the man spoke quietly, his voice like a whisper that cuts through the noise. "Tell me," he said, "what do you give to the world?" The homeless man blinked, completely confused. I don't have anything to give," he stammered. The stranger offered a small, knowing smile. "Then you'll never have anything to receive." And without another word, he turned and walked away. For the rest of the day, that question echoed in the man's mind. What do you give to the world? At first it sounded cruel, almost like mockery. He was a beggar. What could he possibly offer? But as the sun set, something deep in his chest began to stir. Lying on the cold concrete that night, he stared up at the stars and thought, maybe it's not about money. Maybe, just maybe, I've stopped believing I have anything worth giving. The next morning, something was different. He didn't stretch out his hand to beg. He just sat there, thinking. Hours passed. People walked by, surprised by his silence. Then, near the edge of the train tracks, he noticed a small patch of wildflowers growing between the cracks in the pavement. They were small and fragile, but beautiful. He carefully picked one and held it to his nose, and then, almost without realizing it, he smiled. That day, a new kind of transaction began. Every time someone dropped a coin into his cup, he handed them a small flower in return. Most people were confused at first, but then a smile would spread across their faces. A few even said, "Thank you." One woman's eyes welled up with tears. For the first time in years, he didn't feel invisible. He was giving something, even if it was small, even if it was simple. He was participating in the world again. Days turned into weeks. He started waking up earlier to find more flowers. People began coming to see him, not just to give out of pity, but for the exchange, for that small moment of connection. His corner became known as the spot with the man with the flowers. And with every smile, every coin, every thank you, he felt a piece of himself coming back to life. Weeks later, the man in the suit appeared again. This time, the flower man ran toward him, his face beaming with excitement. "Sir, look!" he said, his hands trembling as he held out a small bunch of wildflowers. "Now I have something to offer." The businessman looked at him, and his smile was warmer this time. "Now you understand," he said softly. "You're not just surviving, you're creating value. You're already in business." Those words hit him like sunlight after a storm. In business. He had never, ever thought of himself that way. That night, he made a decision. He gathered every single coin he had saved, went to a small market, and bought his first real flowers, a few roses, lilies, and daisies. The next morning, he wasn't sitting anymore. He was standing. He wasn't begging, he was selling. The change was small on the outside, but it was enormous within. People saw him differently. They greeted him, they learned his name, they respected his effort. His hands, once stretched out in need, now offered color and beauty to the world. Day after day, he sold more, he smiled more, he believed more. 6 months later, he had his own little flower cart. His clothes were clean, his shoes were new, and his eyes were alive again. One sunny afternoon, while arranging his flowers, he saw the same businessman walking by. He rushed up to him, his heart full. "You were right," he said. "I wasn't a beggar. I was a businessman who just hadn't realized it yet." The man smiled proudly and replied, "The moment you started giving, you became rich." Sometimes the greatest transformation doesn't start with money or luck. It begins with a simple shift in how we see ourselves. That man didn't wait for the world to change for him. He changed his world by believing he had something worth offering. If this story touched you, I'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below and tell me, what do you have to give to the world? Your gift might be bigger than you think. And please, don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more stories like this, and share it with someone who needs to remember that inside every struggle, there's a seed just waiting to bloom. Thank you for watching.